Hello, I'm Kelly Mackenzie. I'm the Executive Director of Silent Voice Canada. We are thrilled to have University of Toronto second-year med students and first-year med students on placement with us. Over the last several years, we've enjoyed amazing groups of students. And I want to express some comments about professionalism, introductions, and building a rapport as a medical practitioner, which you might be very in the near future, with patients. So one of the things that I think is absolutely crucial is that you know what you don't know. You know a great deal and you're going to be learning a great deal, but there's an awful lot that we don't know. And especially if you're meeting a patient from a community that you're not familiar with. They bring community, cultural wealth, and lived experience and expertise about themselves that is not to be negated or to be disregarded. They are really experts about themselves. Um, and I think in terms of communication, and of course, I come from a perspective of working with members of the deaf and hard of hearing community. If you have questions about how best to communicate or how to approach a barrier or a challenge, how to remove a barrier, ask. And don't ask the interpreter if an interpreter is present. Ask the person that you want the answer from, and they are best equipped to give you an answer. Also, if you're meeting somebody for the first time from a community that you don't understand and haven't had exposure to, or a condition that they have, or an identity that they have that you're just not familiar with, do some homework, research, find out a bit more if you can. I think that one of the things that you might make note of when you're doing your homework or even when you're speaking with the patient is the language that's used. So, for example, the deaf community won't be talking about being hearing impaired. And so if they say, I'm deaf, I use sign language, and then you turn around and say, well, your hearing impairment is blah, 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 that's not the term that they use to identify themselves. And that's just an example. So find out some of the language that's being used by the community or about the condition or about the identity so that you can use that same language or certainly respect the choice of language. One of the things that I think is also important to know is how you are perceived. So does this community have a general reverence for doctors? Are you an oppressor? Have you, for example, in the deaf community, have you tried to always make deaf people hearing and been part of a movement to pathologicalize hearing loss versus a deaf identity and a cultural identity? So I think it's quite important to figure out how you are regarded by community members. Are there barriers for them to navigate healthcare? And if there are, what are they? And can they be removed? Can you be part of removing those barriers? Learn about your obligations under the Ontario AODA, the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the Accessible Canada Act. There are some legal and moral obligations for you to become accessible. And what does that look like? How does removing barriers come about? And some of the things that are easy to do. So, for example, make some extended time for appointments with people that you know are either bringing an interpreter or have a condition where they need more time rather than rushing them through. Check your biases. And this is always difficult to do because most of them are unconscious and they form our assumptions. So, and one of the things that I do is I find out when I'm surprised. So are you going to be surprised if one of your patients has written a book, is a PhD, is an engineer, is a doctor? I've made notes on a handout that you're going to get. Is it going to surprise you that they're smart or they can navigate their life independently? The other thing is English is not everybody's first language. So whether you're communicating in English or writing in English, a script or something, um, know that lots of people have English as maybe a second, third, fourth language. And we tend to, as um, people that speak English, judge people based on their English, and we judge their intelligence based on their English skills. So let's not do that, because people have different languages, and English proficiency is not a measure of somebody's intelligence or capabilities. I think assumptions are probably the most dangerous thing. I think what we need to do is make sure we're not assuming we have shared understanding of terminology or shared understanding of, you know, my role, your role, shared understanding of how you perceive me as a medical practitioner, etc. And the other thing is be present, be patient. Um, don't be looking away. Don't look at an interpreter if an interpreter is present. Make sure that if at any given time somebody can say, summarize what that person has just said to you, that you're able to do that because you've been actively listening. So those are some of the kind of professionalism traits and a way to build a rapport with your patients, regardless of what circumstance they come in with or what identity or what culture they come from. And I hope that this has been helpful. And I look forward to receiving more of you guys on placement with Silent Voice Canada. Thank you.